Chapter 211. Thea grinned as she approached the third priestess. You didn't wait long, did you? If you don't mind, then. Before Thea could finish her sentence, the dark-skinned woman knelt in front of her. She held her short sword with both hands and sobbed. You are the only representative of Artemis in this world. I am willing to return the name of Artemis and become your eternal servant. I will continue to serve the goddess of the hunt. Please accept me. Thea quickly glanced at the crowd and found that they were all surprised. This meant that this was not anyone's idea. It was the dark-skinned woman's own idea. She had to admit that she was quick-witted. She gave up the name of Artemis and became a servant. At least her reputation was preserved. If Thea did not leave the island, no one could banish her. However, her so-called eternal servant was a heavy promise. She probably thought that Thea would not live long. What a pity. Now, with the blessing of the chosen and the divine power, and the life she shared with the unicorn, Thea could live for tens of thousands of years. The dark-skinned woman's plan was quite thorough. It seemed that she was not a completely brainless warrior. Should I accept her or not? She glanced at Hippolyte and saw the queen nodding slightly at her. Thea would not be so obedient, but she was already in a state of indifference. The queen's gesture made her make up her mind. What is your real name? The dark-skinned woman said with a little pain. Niabi. Thea took her short sword and returned it to her. I am Thea Quinn, the chosen of Artemis. As the only representative of Artemis's authority on earth, I accept your loyalty until the end of your life. I allow you to continue to serve the goddess. After saying that, she gently stroked Niabi's shoulder with the silver moon longbow in her hand. Get up, warrior of the goddess. I'll give you a mission now. Under the dark and muscular woman's puzzled gaze, Sia pointed at the elk. The task of feeding it from now on is yours. Sending the tanned woman to feed the elk was an important reason for Sia's final decision. As the daughter of a wealthy family, she did not have the patience to serve animals. Since the tanned woman knew the elk before, the task of feeding it from now on would be handed over to her. All of this happened very quickly. The dark-skinned woman gave up on the title of god, and the competition became meaningless. Only then did the crowd burst into a huge discussion. Chosen one? This is an honor that only the ancient heroes can obtain. God is the only one who walks on earth, the spokesperson of God. Oh my God. The three old priests were completely withered, and the most important fighting force under their hands, the black strong woman, directly surrendered to the enemy. The remaining few female warriors looked at their eyes with a little distrust. Although the voters were only designated by a single G.O.D., her status as a representative of the G.O.D.S. gave her great power to speak. The three of them had been talking about the 12 gods together for so many years. Now Artemis and the others definitely couldn't represent them, but they couldn't say that it was announced by 11 gods when they announced the oracle in the future. The whole could not be changed. This was their iron law for almost 5,000 years. Now that a hole had been dug in the iron law, the three of them felt that everything that happened today was still a dream. Thea was too lazy to pay attention to their thoughts. She just wanted to go back quickly and carefully study the specific abilities of the Chosen One and the Divine Bow. However, Hippolyte pulled her, raised her arm high, and announced loudly in her puzzled eyes, "From now on, she is our Artemis, our sister." Oh, Artemis. The crowd below burst into cheers, especially Diana, who shouted the loudest. Oh. I've joined the team. Thea looked at the excited expressions of the crowd. This was no longer a matter of unlocking the reputation. After receiving the title of God, she was already a member of the Amazon team. Legally, from any point of view, she was a member of this team. Anyway, she still had to stay here for a few months, so it was not bad. Thea calmly accepted the praise of everyone, including the old priests, who came forward and said a few words of congratulations against their will. Hippolyte ignored the priests who had ugly expressions. Diana, you take Artemis to change clothes. The rest of you, come with me to prepare the ceremony to welcome the new sister. Thea, oh, no, Artemis, let's go. The ceremony will be ready quickly. Diana dragged Thea and ran. Elk saw it and quickly followed. The black strong woman sighed and followed behind. Diana, just call me Thea. Before she could finish her words, she was interrupted sharply. No. You must maintain respect for the gods. Elk blabbered a lot. Thea was a little speechless. You don't have to be so respectful to the gods. In her opinion, the goddess is just a little bit better than a clown. You admire her so much, but she doesn't care about you at all. Although you are half-sisters, the goddess only mentioned Diana at the end. I'm afraid that 10,000 Dianas added together are not as important as her dear. Thea was a little speechless. The so-called blessings of the gods were most likely forced by Zeus because he loved his daughter. Thea felt that her time was tight and her task was heavy. She had to correct her life principles and establish a healthy outlook on the gods. Otherwise, she would be defeated by her half-brother in the future. The three people and a deer left the tower and began to speed up. Thea now had one god's blessing. Although it was far inferior to Diana's 6 gods' blessings, the anti-magic restriction on her body had been lifted. She still had more than 10 years of magic power in her body and a trace of divine power transformed from divinity. She was now more powerful than Diana, whose divine power was suppressed by 90%. Elks were animals that were good at running. The black strong woman ran around the island every day, so she was not slow either. In less than 15 minutes, they returned to their residence. Diana took out a set of Amazon armor and asked Thea to change into it. There was nothing to say. For the coordination of the organization, they had to wear the same uniform. Thea had to change into it if she wanted to join them. Can't I wear underwear? Thea asked Diana when she knew that she had to wear the half-body armor without any clothes. Diana hesitated and let her try it on. She quickly found the problem and shook her head. No, your black belt is too obvious on your back. You should get over it. Fortunately, there were shorts in ancient Greece. She did not have to walk around in a battle dress. Although there were no males on the island, the refreshing feeling was intoxicating. Thea's body was a little skinny compared to her peers. Fortunately, she was tall enough. Although she was not as tall as Diana, who was 1.8 meters tall, her height was considered average on the island. After changing into the standard Paradise Island uniform, she looked at the bronze mirror to see if there were any flaws. She was satisfied. She added a cape and a spear and shouted, "Sparta." She could go to the movie set next door to be an extra. She wrapped a few parts of the mechanical arm with magic power and put them into her blood space. Their ritual advocated simplicity. Wearing too many accessories would make them look weird. Chapter 2:12. Thea changed her clothes and followed Diana. Why are we here? Isn't this a temple? Thea followed them to a huge karst cave and asked in confusion. This place was very close to the place where the two girls were honest with each other 2 days ago. Our sisters came from here in the beginning. Diana didn't explain much and led the way inside. Thea secretly observed the nearby rocks and landforms. Does this mean that the soil that created the Amazon came from this cave? Should I take some soil back for testing before we leave? She followed Diana into the depths of the karst cave. Wow, this place is huge. The karst cave was as spacious as a large square, and the height was at least 20 meters. The female warriors were all in position, half kneeling with their heads bowed as they recited ancient poems. Hippolyte's eyes opened slightly. When she saw them, she gestured for Thea to enter the pool in front of her. Thea had just taken 2 steps when Diana pulled her back. Why are you pulling me? Diana first pouted with her mouth, but when she saw that she did not understand, she could only whisper, "Clothes, bath." Although Thea did not have Athena's wisdom, she was still an outstanding smart person among the mortals. When she heard her words, she asked in surprise, "Now? Isn't there a changing room? I just walk in after taking off my clothes?" Diana nodded vigorously, indicating that there was no room for negotiation. Oh my God. You are indeed influenced by ancient Greece. You are so open-minded. However, there was no room for hesitation. She had to make up her mind and stomp her feet. If she died, then so be it. They were all women anyway, so it was not a loss. Thea trembled as she handed her clothes to her new servant, Niabi, for safekeeping. The tanned and strong woman had been expelled from the Amazon and could not participate in the ceremony. Now, she was just watching the ceremony as Thea's servant. Shoes. Diana hurriedly reminded her when she saw that she was about to move forward. Thea took off her shoes again. Although it was not cold in the cave, she still felt chilly. It was less than 30 meters away. In the past, she could run it in a second, but now she felt that she had walked for 30 minutes. From time to time, she could feel gazes falling on her back, thighs, and many other indescribable parts. She walked barefoot on the gravel road. With her body that had been transformed by divine power, she would not be injured even if she walked on a mountain of swords, let alone gravel. However, she felt a sharp pain coming from her feet. Her nerves were tense, and she relied on her strong self-control to barely keep her pace steady. Fortunately, no matter how long the road is, it has an end. After 30 meters, Thea dives into the pool under the instruction of Hippolyte. She doesn't breathe a sigh of relief until the water reaches her neck. Bathing is only a part of the ceremony. She definitely can't be allowed to bathe for half an hour. There are 1,500 people below watching with their eyes wide open. After a brief dip in the water, Miss Thea was pulled out again. She quickly put on her clothes and followed the crowd to recite a prayer aimed at praising Zeus. Seeing that the old man's quiver is not bad, Thea also hummed a few words to make up the numbers. Hippolyte took the lead to welcome the new sister to join. The 1,500 people came forward one by one to express their blessings. They were busy for another hour. Thea was pulled out wet. Now her hair is dry. Seeing the crowd gradually disperse, she breathed a sigh of relief. It's finally over. Diana, take Artemis to the temple to leave an image. The queen's order made Thea's heart skip a beat. There's more. When she arrived at the temple, she found a few female warriors and told them the purpose of their visit. Thea then understood that the so-called image was a statue to be placed beside the gods. If it was still the era of belief, Thea might directly become a god after a few million years by relying on the statue. Thinking that the goddess is good to her, giving her pets and equipment, it's not shameful to put a statue beside her. Thea happily agreed. Who knows that this is the beginning of her nightmare? What? It's just a pose? Why do I have to take off my shirt? Thea feels that it's too difficult to communicate with these old-fashioned people. The female warrior, who has good craftsmanship and can be regarded as a sculptor in modern society, showed a bitter smile. She has been talking to the new chosen of the goddess of the hunt for half an hour. She talked from art to folklore, from folklore to doctrine, and led Thea to visit the statue room again. Indeed, as she said, all the statues were in a variety of combat postures. There were no extra clothes, just a cloth belt below as clothes. Seeing that Thea was a little hesitant, he began to talk about the beauty, the sense of honor, and the power of faith of believers. He chattered on and on about the benefits of all these. Thea didn't listen to the female sculptor's other words, but she did hear the power of faith clearly. Although it is not the era of belief, it doesn't mean that belief doesn't provide power. It can't be seen in a short time, but Thea is not a person of this era. When she returns to the original time and space, it will be 100 years later. The faith accumulated in this 100 years is enough for her to transform a lot of divine power. Then can we go into the temple to make a statue? No way. The gravel will tarnish the sanctity of the temple. No, we have to make a statue in the square outside. It is ventilated and full of sunlight, an important place for art to burst forth. The sculptor insisted that the statue must be made in the open. Thea thought for a long time. For the sake of that little bit of faith, I'll go all out. She couldn't help but look up at the sky. The gods have fallen, Batman's watchtower will not rise for another 100 years, so there shouldn't be anyone watching from the sky. For the second time in a day, she took off her armor, wrapped a piece of linen around her waist, and stood in a place with the most sunlight. She was a little embarrassed when she carried the quiver. The quiver was slanted, and the belt just happened to pass through the indescribable thing on Thea's chest, making her a little breathless. Why is this thing so tight? She adjusted it a few more times and put it in a barely suitable position. She raised the longbow, and although her chest was pounding, she had to pretend to be careless and fearless. Hold on to this position. I'll be done in a minute. The sculptor corrected her a few more small movements, and then he began to work with the hammer and axe. Thea maintained this position for 3 hours, but she didn't look like she was going to be done soon. She wanted to cast a haste spell on this guy, but the spell was blocked by the island's anti-magic barrier as soon as it was cast. Sigh. Thea sighed. It seemed that the anti-magic barrier on her body had been lifted, and she could only cast spells on herself in the future on the island. As the sun set, most of the female warriors finished their day's training. When they passed by the square, they all paid attention to Thea, who was posing. It was really a test of her acting skills to be watched by a group of people, but she still had to pretend to be serious. Thea could only focus on thinking about new skills to ease the inexplicable awkwardness.